So, Kyle, you are on with Jimmy and Jamie, and we're happy to have you. How can we help you?
Well, Jamie, good afternoon. I saw your poll question about faith, and I am an atheist, so I have to agree that necessarily having faith in God probably isn't your best avenue. But I don't necessarily believe that faith is always a bad thing. Can I assume that since the question's there and you guys sort of think that faith isn't good, are you saying that faith is bad?
So first we need to define terms, because when I say faith in terms of biblical faith, I am taking the Hebrews interpretation, the evidence of things unseen. It's basically believing something regardless of the evidential state, and in some cases, even in the face of opposing evidence. But do you have a different definition for faith?
Mine's very similar. Faith is just believing something to be true, even though it may not seem like it's factual. So believing that tomorrow is going to be a better day, even though your life is crashing down around you. And I also equate faith very closely with hope. And I think people need to have hope, even when the odds are against them. I've seen it work great things in people's lives, that faith and hope is the only thing that got them through till tomorrow.
I don't know about you, Jimmy. Sorry to sort of bogart this, but I would push back. Hope, yes. Hope and faith may seem similar, but I draw the distinction on the degree of certainty. Faith comes in this will be better. Hope is this may be better. And I think that it's actually healthier to understand that while we want things to be better, we want to hope that things are going to be better. To understand that we don't know whether they will or not, to come to terms with that builds resilience. And the concept of believing in something regardless of evidence or in the face of contravening evidence is, in my opinion, far more dangerous than it is beneficial. So do you have any other examples of where faith would unequivocally, undeniably be the better option?
Not really. I have to agree with you. Biblical faith is probably not a good idea because it's not factual. But sometimes I think that atheists use the word faith in a context as if it's a negative thing. And I can tell you, I personally know many people, and I would bet the two of you might also know people that faith is what gets them through. Now, saying that, if you remove the faith from that person, what other motivations can they have to continue to keep a positive outlook going forward?
So, in my day job, I talk to a lot of people who are in desperate situations. I talk to people who are very sick. And they have to find motivation sometimes to continue their medical treatments and things like that, despite the fact that these treatments may not work and are in and of themselves unpleasant to go through. And some people have to rely on a trust that they can work. And I think that's where the construing of the word faith and how it can be used in different contexts butts up against each other. Because there is evidence that these things can work, so we just have to put our trust in them. But that's not ungrounded trust. It's reasonable, even though it might sometimes be a long shot. Whereas faith, the biblical faith, and how people want to ascribe faith as a route to truth, especially when it's like, I'm going to take this on faith, I'm going to believe this is true on faith, is not trust. You don't trust in anything because there's nothing to trust in other than that your belief is true. And the question is, what can't you believe on faith? There are many people who've believed things that are completely wrong on faith, and it's had hideous consequences. You know, name a terrorist act, name a crusade, name a holy war. History is littered with the people who believed they were doing the right thing on faith. So that's why I say we should be very careful with that word and use synonyms. If you mean faith that something's going to be all right, say, I trust things are going to be all right. I hope things are going to be all right. But if you're going to have faith, I think that you have to understand the baggage that comes with that word.
Yeah, I've got a couple of thoughts on this myself, Kyle. So I do think that Jamie made a great point as far as building resilience. Building resilience where it relates to faith comes with its own evidence, right? So if I say, using your example, I have faith that tomorrow is going to be a better day. Well, I'm basing that on the fact that I've had better days before. I'm basing that maybe on the fact that I've had some not so good days and I've tried to get through them and they got better, right? That I've had experiences that I was able to master. And as I go through my life, I've built that resilience to be able to overcome certain things. That's not the same. And excuse me. And that's my evidence. My evidence is I can do this. I know I can do this. And I've done it before. However, when we take the word faith and we apply that to religion, well, what's the evidence? What's the evidence of religion? What's the evidence of our God? There's zero. There's zero. And so that's why it doesn't necessarily work the same way. And, you know, I agree wholeheartedly with the idea that we need to kind of use synonyms or maybe even redefine what it means to have faith because, you know, as a military member, I can have faith. I need to have faith in the people that I work with and the people around me and know that they'll come through. They usually do. I have faith about that because, well, they usually do. And because I have gone through the same kind of training and accepted the same kind of doctrine that we have to do certain things to uphold each other and make each other successful, hold each other accountable, etc. But having a faith as far as a religion, again, I have no experience with that being kind of beneficial to what I'm trying to achieve, you know? So I hope that differentiates a little bit and shows you that, you know, faith, I guess, can be good, but when you put it in terms of religion, I do think that the definition is different. I think religious faith is not the same thing as the way that we might use faith in other areas. And so as far as getting back to your question of, you know, is this negative? Well, I don't necessarily think it's always negative, but, you know, to echo the hideous consequences that come from faith that Jamie had alluded to, yes, that is negative. And to apply this dogma to, you know, wanting to accomplish some kind of goal without having evidence, then yes, I do believe it's negative, even if sometimes your belief yields some positive consequences. So that's my response. I don't know. How do you feel about that, Kyle?
I appreciate both you guys' opinions on this. I don't think we're so far apart because with faith, you have to have action. Without action, faith is worthless. I just read the poll question, and those were the thoughts that came to my mind. I appreciate you guys taking my call, and you can move on to other callers if you'd like.
Well, I actually do have one follow-up question, and I always like to do this
Sure.
when we speak to other atheists, right? We do like to give precedence to theists, but then also people who call about the chat. I mean, we're asking you to call in, so you did that, and so we obliged, and I think we had a good conversation. But I want to know, were you always an atheist? So were you always an atheist?
No, I was a Christian for over 30 years, non-denominational. As a child, many different churches, even touched on Catholicism for, 5 or 10 years. But, and just long story short, I actually took the time and read the Bible, and I just found it to be absolutely unbelievable. So,
okay,
that's where I'm at.
You have given me what I'm looking for, and while we've got you, I was kind of hoping that you could give us a little bit of insight on what it took for you as a 30-year plus Christian to turn to turn down the road of skepticism? Was there a significant event, a story? Were there circumstances in your life that kind of made you second guess the way it was that you were living? And I'm a little bit compelled. Anytime I hear a theist say several decades, or excuse me, an atheist say, I was a theist for many decades and then I changed. That is quite uncommon, I think, in my experience. So would you be willing to oblige if it's not too much to deal with?
Sure, absolutely. I had a son, and once I had him, being a believer, I sort of felt like the God question was the most important thing that I would need to instill in him. So I took the time and read the Bible, and quite frankly, I found a lot of it unbelievable, and especially once I got to the book of Abraham, and where God asked him to sacrifice his child, at which point I realized that if God is real, that's an evil act in itself. I continued to read on. You have the story of Jephthah. And then once those doubts got out of my head, I looked at the rest of it very critically and found, I can find some higher truths in it, but as far as being true, belief's not a choice. I just stopped believing. I just couldn't find myself in a position to support it as being true any longer.
Well said. Very well said.
Yeah, excellent. I think that it's common to come across people who investigate the principles that they've been given throughout their life and kind of turn away and take a new path. So, I will say congratulations to you, and I appreciate you giving us a call. And I hope you'll find a way to give us a call back in the future. You might be an atheist, you might be just like us, but there is probably things that we don't agree on. And I'd be happy to talk to you anytime you want to. Correct me, make me smarter.
That.
Yeah.
And I enjoy your show. I've been watching the Atheist Experience. It's probably where I started for decades. So love what the Atheist Community of Austin does. Most of the time, I don't have any disagreements with you guys at all. Keep doing what you're doing. And trust me, if I see poll questions that I have questions or need clarity on, I will certainly call.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. We are going to let you go.